stuff going on over on Twitter the past few days with platforming and a lot of the issues people are having between Destiny, Nick Fuentes, and Sneeko, and everybody like this. And I definitely have some takes on it. I think that from what I've gathered, you're kind of okay with it for the most part.
Yeah, I don't care about
Well,
any platforming
is there anything that?
arguments, honestly.
Divorce and
No,
Islam.
I think
The
people should
divorce
be
is
able to
allowed in
platform who they
Islam.
want to, as long as they're not violating TOS and, stuff like that, right? So,
Yeah, I would pretty much agree with you for the most part. Um, I definitely don't have too many issues with platforming on that level, and I definitely think there's things with that can be problematic, but I think most of those problems need to be worked out on their own more than be forced out
yeah.
of the social areas of Twitter and YouTube and everywhere else.
Yeah. I've turned them all the way up, chat. Can you not hear them still?
Do you guys need me to adjust some settings? My Discord settings like reset themselves?
Let me see if I can pull you up on a different thing more. Okay.
How do I sound on Discord?
How's it now? Seems better now? Okay. Yeah. Let me pull in. Do you mind if I pull in Uzamark as well?
Go for it.
Hello, Uzamark.
It's your
Well, he's
time to
muted.
shine, Ooze. Where are you?
Hey, you hear me?
Yes, sir. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, buddy. What about you?
Not too bad. Is
I
everybody
don't think I can.
hearing me okay right now?
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, hey, stuff.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, all good. Just getting ready for work. I'm working about half an hour, so.
Cool.
Yeah, so I just
So-
thought I'd play devil's
Oh, yeah,
advocate,
go ahead.
really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so hypothetically, if you had, let's say, hundreds of Twitch streamers who are platforming and trying to debate right-wingers, perhaps, let's say, from Poll and such, and they were doing terribly, and we could see a change in their audience and the audience's opinions, do you think, in that case, that they should be deplatforming should be perhaps considered?
Not really. Honestly, like we already have tons of streamers and YouTubers who will argue with right wingers and just absolutely do terrible, just absolutely, just completely obliterated. I think the more you expose people to those ideas, the more they can actually see the inconsistencies, right? You listen enough to like anybody, they're going to be inconsistent. And even if somebody is like some master debater and can really wow the audience, I think that I still think that we should be allowing people to platform who they want for the most part. Just because, yeah, again, like there are other ways in which platforming can still be a good thing, right? You're providing more content for people to check against, and eventually you'll find contradictions, and if their ideology is flawed, and we know it is, then it'll speak for itself.
So, like, essentially, you're being like saying like an argument Dave Rubin would take, that essentially, if you give someone enough rope, they'll hang themselves. I don't know. I think that's.
I think in a lot of cases, sure. I've seen definitely like the Surfs TV debating Lauren Southern was absolute shit show and just not good. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the content creator, right? So
I think these discussions mostly, like, we're not all, for the most part, me myself included, we're not logic lords, right? It's all a game of rhetoric, these discussions. And oftentimes, as you just mentioned, the left wing talking, the pundit, whatever, will lose. Going back to my hypothetical, let's just say, if we had hundreds and hundreds of left-wing creators trying to debate these, I don't know, Giga Chad, 8D chess playing Nazis, and were losing over and over again, and their audiences, there was evidence of it. You could see the audience being swayed to the right wing. In that hypothetical scenario, do you think deplatforming should be considered?
I don't really think so. I don't know. I guess I just find it so disconnected from like content creation as a whole, right? Like I don't know. I just feel like creative freedom needs to be creative freedom, and even if that creative freedom it has some like you're exposing more people to these views and you're getting completely ass whooped, people need to be able to get their ass whooped and then get up and get better at it, right? And even if they're getting completely wiped by these like 8D chess players or whatever, every time they argue with somebody and they get wiped, they're getting a little bit better. And so that's, I mean, honestly, like at the end of the day, that's kind of like by not talking to people, you're not preparing yourself how to talk to them. You're going to get wiped plenty of times, you know? So
what if they weren't getting better? Let's say the 8 Giga Chad chess masters were getting better and better themselves. What if they kept on getting wiped?
I would hope that there would be somebody. Well, okay, so I would.
Sorry, carry on.
Sorry, I would hope that there would be. I would hope that there would be somebody else among those groups that could counter that, and with enough people, yeah, there are going to be people who can counter it, right? But nobody likes getting their ass whooped, right? And most people, after they get their ass whooped like 1 or 2 times, just quit. So,
can I throw something in here real quick for you, Ooze?
Sure, go on.
So, I think here to have like an interesting, well, not even interesting take, but we all come here for content to some degree or another, and that's going to require a little bit of friction back and forth. If we can't handle the fact that people are going to say things that are just going to upset a group of people regardless of who it is, we need to be able to like actually fight the ideas with better ideas. You can't just be like, okay, let me just throw you in the closet and hope nothing bad happens from this. That's how we ended up in some of like the worst situations in history, and to just sit here and say, because oh, well, what if it's worse, and what if they're better at talking, and what if, well, then get better. Like, improve yourself, improve. The people that are fighting these people need to improve and only need to come up ahead. Otherwise, you're just throwing, shots in the dark to get nothing done.
Yeah, the solution is to get content creators who can speak and who can argue effectively and get them to kind of counter that effect, right? People are, it's just a fact of life. People are going, as they're getting better at debating, they're going to get their ass whooped again and again and again. But I think that you find people who can counter that effect and have some faith in the audience, right? Their ideas don't change overnight. People, their views change very, very slowly. All we're doing is planting the seeds of doubt in people. So.
Yeah, I would say I agree with all of
that. Okay, again, play devil's advocate.
Okay.
How should I put this? I don't think that your left-wing criticizers, I'm not sure of their criticisms, I've not heard them, right? But I think if there was these uber Chad left-wing debaters striking down the right-wingers at every opportunity, I don't think they would be against deplatforming in that case, right? I think what their problem is, the problem they foresee is unequipped left-wing debaters platforming these right-wing Nazis and their views. I think that's the main issue. But I don't think you would have, for example, let's take, I don't particularly like him, but let's take Vorsh as an example. When he platforms, right-wingers, he goes, he does pretty well in his debates and his discussions. I don't know, does he, in your opinion, get as much criticism as you for platforming right-wingers?
So he did at a point, and he doesn't, if you'll look at him now, he won't platform them now. Nowadays, he doesn't talk to anybody who is on the far right. He's doing like a weird religious debate arc right now, so there's that. But yeah, I don't know. I think for the explanations I've heard aren't even about like the arguments. They're like, well, you're exposing your audience to harmful communities, and my question is like, how are they harmful? So they say some mean things, they say some horrible things. But if they're unhinged, just ban them. And if they try to infiltrate your community, just ban them. They'll show themselves eventually. So
I guess this is what I would like you to ask them. And their response to this will probably determine how I feel about it. If you asked them, hypothetically, if someone debated a right winger and absolutely shot them down at every opportunity, made them look foolish, would you still be against that individual platforming Nazis and those
they
opinions?
would be.
Do you think?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Because I've had arguments with them on other occasions, and I've argued effectively, at least in my opinion. I think I've done really well against them. And I've pretty much like shot down their arguments, and they still hold the same views about platforming. So it is what it is, I guess.
Suppose so. Again, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm not saying I necessarily believe
No,
what
I
I'm
know.
saying.
I know. Yeah.
Just throwing things out there.
appreciate
Okay, do you want another little hypothetical scenario?
Sure.
Okay, so let's say there were effective debaters and rhetoricians, whatever, that were engaging with with right wingers, and they were, dismantling their arguments pretty effectively. If you could observe a rising trend amongst audiences, regardless of those left-wing debaters' performances, they weren't being swayed by them, and the tide was rising in favor of the right wing and their opinions. In that case, so essentially I'm saying they're ineffective despite their ability to debate and changing people's opinions. Do you think in that situation deplatforming should be considered?
I think if you're going into these debates thinking you're changing people's opinions, you're already doing it wrong.
Why do we enter them?
Well, I mean, part of it is like coming down to it, part of it is entertainment, right? And then the other part is planting seeds of doubt. I'm not under the delusion that I'm changing people's minds. All I'm trying to do is make people see me as a little bit more human and have some more sympathy towards our side, right? And we've seen that. We've seen the temperature down has been brought down. The way that people on that side engage with the idea of transgender people has the temperature has been brought down significantly. At one point they just despised them. Now it's like, well, at some, and it's not much better, but they think that it's, like, oh, they're harming themselves, but that's still an improvement from like absolutely despising them, right? Yeah. So
This is something that I heard Destiny talk about. I think it was, I don't know, a couple of days ago, and I'm not sure if I agreed with him about it. He said something, I can't remember if he was talking about deplatforming specifically, but he mentioned that, the whole bread tube arc, the lefty arc, he mentioned that he said they were ineffective, right, in what they did. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that. Like, can you remember when the whole like banning arc came down, when they deplatformed Milo Yiannopoulos, they deplatformed Alex Jones, Nick Fuentes will be among those. Do you not think it was effective at all?
So we still had 2016 happen. We still had Trump. We still had every shooting that's happened. We still had, January 6th happen. And these are things that happened after.
No, the reason why I mentioned that is because you talked about, the changing opinion in regard to transgender issues. Do you not think that could potentially be because we've silenced the opposition and it has allowed space for transgender issues to breathe a little?
Yeah. So when I talk about bringing down the temperature, I'm not talking about on the left or even in the center or the internet as a whole, right? I've had messages from people who are in those spaces, in those super disconnected, isolated spaces, send me messages and say that we have successfully brought down the temperature around some of these topics. And I think that that's more important, right? But the echo chamber, he's saying, sure, it can be ineffective because nobody's practicing giving arguments that are effective that could pull people more towards their side. If you've got a left-wing echo chamber, nobody's practicing new arguments. Nobody's really finding an effective way to engage with people who could possibly be swayed.
So
I guess I don't know how I feel about.
else
Absolutely, sure, go
to
ahead.
that. Mark, you said something along the lines of because of the banning that perhaps the trans right activism that we're seeing nowadays is kind of because we started silencing the opposition. I mean, I really wouldn't
Mhm.
say that's really too um, relevant at all. I think that would have happened regardless because of the shifting tides we have in such larger mechanisms on the left regarding to colleges and schools and a lot more of these real world institutions that hold as much power as they do within society, that it's kind of hard to just put that online and say, hey, this is the echo chamber that caused this, that, or the other. Like, no, because there's so many more people
Aren't
doing
these
things in real life.
institutions, aren't these one of the main criticisms of these institutions is that they are echo chambers? You know, academics get shut down if they express certain opinions.
Yeah,
Me
they are.
myself, when I was at university, my own thesis was back in the day. Anyway, that's irrelevant. No, but one of the points is that these institutions that you talk about, these larger mechanisms, these are in some ways echo chambers that do silence and deplatform the opposition. And
They,
Stardust, you mentioned, yeah, Trump was also elected, but Biden was elected 4 years after that.
of
Yeah,
course,
but that was we still had again we still had January 6th, right? We've still had every mass shooting. We've still had every, instance of right-wing extremism that's popped up, the governor being kidnapped, or the not being kidnapped, but the kidnapping plot, right? These are things that still happen regardless of people being deplatformed. And guess what, a lot of the reason why people were able to organize for things like January 6th is because they were using apps like Parler, right, and Telegram. Telegram and Parler were like things that people flocked to as a result of being deplatformed.
Sure, I'm not saying that deplatforming is a magic wand that's going to fix all of societal ills, but
I think it
absolutely lead to a
actually.
changing tide.
I
Like, for
think
example, sorry, carry on. Yeah.
I was going to say, I actually think that deplatforming these people actually radicalizes them even further because taking them out of a place where they have other people that can talk to them and actually can push back against them and actually provide a opposition, instead they end up in these corners and the only other people that are there with them are the ones that are pushing it even further and making it even more extreme. And then that's how you, I would say that's how you end up with things like January 6th. That's how you end up with these school shootings. That's how you end up with all of these other things, is when people find more radical people that don't pull them away from the edge.
Yeah, to be honest, though, I don't know. You can make an argument. You can. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with this, but you can make an argument, for example, that yes, sure, more people might be pushed towards radicalism, pushed towards the margins through deplatforming, but per capita, the amount of those individuals might decrease. So, like
But
for example, we brought up.
extremism gets more extreme when people are isolated.
Okay,
Extremism gets
let's.
more. There's no way to reduce the temperature around some of these topics if they are in their echo chambers and constantly the temperature is going up.
Okay, let's give a like a. Sorry, I don't want to use it. Like, okay, is the word autist okay?
What?
Is it allowed? Are you allowed to use the word autist to describe
I
something,
think
or
so.
is that just considered ableism?
It might be ableism. I'm not sure, but
Okay. Anyway,
I'm not offended. But yeah.
yeah, I don't know the terms of service or anything. I don't know what you feel comfortable with. But let's say you had 1,000 people. Okay. In one scenario, you have 1,000 people, and this is the full freedom of speech. Everyone's allowed to discuss all ideas. You know, everything's fine. Um, you have 400 people, let's say, who are on the right wing because of this. Okay, and let's say 20 of those individuals you would call very far right wing. Okay, the other scenario, when you have 1,000 people in a society that does deplatform aggressively, because of the aggressive deplatforming, let's say instead of 400 people that fall into the right wing, you now have 200 because you've silenced all opposition and you're essentially what we would indoctrinating, right? And because of that, there leads to people being pushed to the margins and resulting of that, let's say 10 people become radicalized because of being pushed to the margins. Which situation would be better overall, do you think? Do you see what I'm trying to get at?
I think your explanation may have been a little bit too long for me to completely understand, but we know that by like real world evidence that I understand the hypothetical you're trying to pose here, but we know with real world evidence that that basically people, when they are in their echo chambers, that one, they don't engage with any other arguments, two, their temperature continually rises, and a lot of people become more extreme after being pushed into those echo chambers and being pushed and isolated. And I just can't, I mean, like, again, like, there are plenty of people in real life that everybody knows that think that the most abhorrent things, and we still interact with them on a day-to-day basis. I'm not going to cut off somebody just because of their terrible beliefs, right? I'm going to try harder to have conversations with them and not make them feel like they're disconnected from the world and from society. So
Oh yeah, I feel you. I'm not saying I'm for deplatforming. I'm just
I know.
bring it out there. I wanted to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think that the areas that you're coming from with this devil's advocate side is like too surface level for me to really be able to engage with it at like a deeper place. Like if I were making your argument for you, I would say that some levels of these deplatformation can be good because some of the rhetoric that these people are spewing can actually become violence in terms of not just what they're saying, but they themselves are calling for violence in other areas. Like if Nick Fuentes was on his Cozy TV saying, I don't want to say anything too crazy on here, but if he was saying something that you would imagine he would say, a more crazy version, kill all the Minecraft villagers and everything else that he's saying, and then going onto Destiny stream and sitting there and eating chicken and waffles and joking around and asking people what their ethnicities are and races, then at that point I think you'd have like a more understandable argument to be like, hey, this person's actually calling for violence, this person's actually trying to bring people here. But until you have those type of things happening in the background and you can see that, you can physically see those things, you can't ask for these other things to follow without these things happening first.
Yeah, the issue is definitely that also, Nick has never advocated for genocide like that, at least. Like he makes jokes that are pretty distasteful, but he's never said something outright like that until he says something outright like that. I think
He never
again,
really.
I think his views are very abhorrent. I think he's compared race mixing to bestiality. Like, I think that's pretty abhorrent.
Well,
But
I mean, that was.
yeah,
Have you heard the clip on
yeah.
that?
What?
Have you heard the
Oh,
clip where what you're referring to right now?
no, somebody just told me about it. I don't even know if it's like 100% true. So
No, it
yeah.
was whatever they told you actually wasn't even the case. He just said more or less what they were saying. He was saying race mixing is not right, and then someone was like, "Oh, would you rather do that with a dog?" And he was saying, "No, but they're both bad." He compared the two, but not
Stop.
within each other.
Firstly, how do you feel about stochastic terrorism? Secondly, I've got some quotes here from Nick that are pretty juicy. I've not
From
watched the
when?
VOD myself. Let's see. Let's click on the video. He's on Twitter. I don't know if he's joking here or not, but he says, I can pull it up.
Oh my gosh, not so
Okay,
right.
I have a link. I have a link here, perhaps if you want to watch Nick on stream. But he says, the quote is, all I want is revenge against my enemies and a total Aryan victory. I'm like Hitler, an incel. You'd call him a volcel too.
I think
I have the clip there.
first off, he's wrong because Hitler was fucking around with all sorts of women. But secondly, I'm pretty sure that he is probably not being serious on that. But regardless, like, yeah, he says yikesy things all the time, but I don't know that there's enough there for me to justify like deplatforming him or telling Destiny to not have him on stream, so yeah.
If it were up to you, would you have Nick Fuentes back on Twitch? If he was ever on Twitch?
I don't really know. I'm not the person to ask for that because there's a reason I'm not the person,
Yeah,
I'm not
right.
doing it,
I
so
would say, yeah, do
yeah.
it. Why not? You can only have so many of those talks, like what we saw.
I mean, look, I make jokes all the time.
Well, did you guys see the talk
so
with him and Sneeko and Don the Crown and a few other people?
I didn't, but I just have to say, like, look, I have to say that I personally have made countless jokes about being the savior of the white race, about deporting all men, about how all white men should aspire to be what I am. If I'm
You
taken out
really
of
think he's
context,
joking here?
I don't know. I don't know. I would have to look at the video. But like again, I don't know. I feel like I don't know enough for me to say that Destiny should not have him on stream. I've interacted with the guy, and I feel like we've had productive conversations when I've been on the same debate panels as him. So I don't at this point in time have any reason to think otherwise. You know.
What I was saying with that talk he had with them, how many talks do you think he's going to be able to have about not race mixing is bad and all these things if he's actually on the platform every day? Because I would say it probably ends at 5 because no one cares to hear
Yeah.
that after a little while. Like Abba and all them and everybody are entertaining this because he hasn't been here for very long. But the second this goes on for a few more weeks, you really think it's like it's not relevant. Nobody cares to talk about that. It's already happening now. Like he would just end up Xing himself out of the community just by his rhetoric alone.
Yeah, him saying that he's an incel like Hitler is ridiculous because Hitler like slept with like a whole bunch of women. I'm pretty sure. But
I suppose what this is, the broader talk, small part of a broader talk about censorship. Right? How do you feel about censorship as a whole? For example, terms of service. You think there should be a terms of service? We can't say X word, Y word.
I don't know. Like I personally, I'm pretty close to being a free speech absolutist, with the exception of like things that very clearly cause harm to other people. But there's a reason why, like again, I'm not somebody who's in those positions. I don't want those decisions to be up to me. I'm not the person. Like there's some
Okay,
decisions
but we
that
live in
I
a
just don't want to
democracy,
be.
right? Like, let's say we
I
had
don't want to
a, I don't know.
be. I don't want to be a part of that
So,
decision, though. I feel like I'm the wrong person to advocate like what should be allowed speech and what shouldn't be. I think obviously
no.
yelling
Come on.
fire
Tomorrow,
in a movie
Twitch is
theater.
unionized. Sorry, Twitch is unionized. Okay, it's a democracy. There's a vote. How would you throw your vote? Are we gonna have terms of service or not?
Okay, I mean, I'll answer
It's going to come down to advertisers, right? So money is the main thing, right? So if advertisers are like, you got to restrict these things, and we'll allow our ads to be run on your site, then I would be like, okay, we're gonna cede to advertisers every single time, because something needs to be profitable for it to be going on. So
The advertisers are cool with it. It's not going to affect anything monetarily. This is purely just like a moral or ethical decision.
Well, don't incite violence. Don't, use, some of the more or some of the worst racist words. Don't
Why?
attack people. Why? Because we don't.
Why not? Why not?
Because I would follow the same rules within real life that I would apply online.
If I'm not honestly, I'm going to be real with you guys. Look, I have been called everything under the sun on the internet, and at this point, I don't care. So I am the worst person to ask this because I'm so desensitized to the internet. Like nothing matters to me, So literally, that's why I don't think I'm the best person to determine things like this, because I've seen it all. It doesn't affect me anymore, and I just I would just probably just let whatever happen, as long as people aren't like spamming docs info and spamming harmful shit, right? But that doesn't mean that it's the right way to go. It doesn't mean that I'm just a fucked up desensitized individual. Nobody should be making rules based off of what I think, and same thing with Nick. Like, again, the dude has very abhorrent views. I think I disagree with him on virtually everything, but he is polite when I debate him. He is, and I think as long as you're responsibly, handling him, it's fine. Like, I've yelled at him on the last panel that I had him on. I yelled at everybody on the panel, including him. It wasn't discriminatory at all. I think too many people suck up to him. I think that's probably part of the issue, but and I've been on debate panels and I've engaged in conversation with him, and he will engage honestly with you if given the chance, right? Again, he has really, really terrible views, but I'm not going to tell anybody else who they should platform and who they shouldn't platform. So, yeah.
Yeah, I
okay, cool.
Agree.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an interesting chat. I need to get ready for work now, so I need to hop off.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Good luck.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yep. Have a good one, man.
Oh, nice singing, by the way. You've got a nice voice.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. It's very kind of you.
I have a whole separate issue with you,
What's your
Stardust.
separate issue?
So, look, I'm trying to have a civil discussion with you and panel with you about some of these talks that have been going around online with all this toxic masculinity and all these sick men that don't know how to express themselves in a positive manner, and the difference between these toxic masculine men like Andrew Tate, or at least the way he presents himself, because I don't really think that's who he is fully as a person,
Yeah.
and then some of these talks around everything that's coming along with it, because I feel like it's really going down a bad route, and I think that
I
we
think there's
need
a
to
swing back right
redirect it.
now.
There
I think
is,
right now, yeah, there's a swing back after the whole Me Too movement. And I think when there's a huge change like the Me Too movement brought about, and such a change socially and in our culture, how we handle dating and workplace environments and interactions and stuff, there's going to be a very, very intense swing back. And I think hopefully over time, the swing back will get less and less and less until we like kind of neutralize. But until then, right, we're kind of like along for the ride. And right now we're in the very first big, big swing back from Me Too.
okay, well, here I want to pose something to you and see where you kind of fall on this, because I do think that some of the things that, Fresh and Fit, Andrew Tate, and some of these other people, there's a lot of truth behind some of the bullshit. And so I kind of want to see what you think about this. What would you say, like, a healthy masculine man is?
I don't know. Um, I think that if we want to talk about like biological reality, right? Men and women are just different. We just are, right? On average, men are larger and stronger than a woman. On average, women are not as strong and more easily,
I
more
guess let me
easily.
focus it in a little bit more, because I don't want the biological things. We all know what's different between like men and women as far as that goes. But like, what traits would you want in a masculine man in your mind for that to be a healthy thing still?
I don't know. It's so hard to say. I know that I have to think about this more honestly because I think it's important for me to reiterate that, like, while I think, like, here's the reason why I brought up biological realities is because while I think that people have, are inherently different based on their biology, I still think when it comes to our brains and when it comes to our spirits and stuff like that in our minds, people should have the right to pursue what they want and to pursue the life that they want and what makes them feel good, right? As long as they're not hurting anybody else. Now, as far as like what a masculine man is, I'm not really sure.
See,
Um,
I think
I
you're
think I think men in general are. I mean, obviously there's like men are masculine, I guess, but in some sense, like naturally masculine. But I think that I don't know. I think that these roles can be changed a lot, right? I think women have entered the workforce, and while yeah, women still like to be protected. We need to start changing things up so men can also be alleviated from some of like the unfair pressures that are put on them, and women should be allowed to pursue what they want.
so
So
I definitely agree with you. I feel like we kind of got off the track, so I'm gonna like refocus it a little bit more and make it a little bit more like clear, and then maybe I'll give some examples so we can kind of go down a certain direction with this. But when I'm talking about men, I'm not saying like men in society in general. What is a masculine man? I'm saying like out of these group of men that we're looking at, that Andrew Tate and Sneeko and these people talk to, we're generally talking about cis men, and we're
mhm.
generally talking about men who do feel the way that what they're saying is true. I would say that masculine man in that right, in regards to the group of people we're talking about, might be a man that is okay to be able to have the confidence within himself to be able to be out there, be able to put himself out there, be okay with rejection, have life experiences. I would say that using those experiences in a positive way, being able to protect a woman both physically and spiritually and mentally, I would say that all of those things are extremely positive traits for a masculine man, and that he has to be able to be okay with that, and has to be able to be okay with, putting himself, I guess, in a way, into violent situations, but for the right reasons.
Okay. I mean, look, I don't know. Honestly, when it comes to the masculine question, I feel like I'm the most ill-equipped person to answer, right? Because what healthy masculinity is, can't really be defined by me. I'm a woman, right? It's
Well,
going to be, at the end of the day, be like up to men.
Well, no, I think you actually play like a huge role in defining it as a woman, because for these type of men, the men that we're talking about when we talk about people like Andrew Tate and those people and what they're preaching to men, most of the men in that circle, if we're being realistic, aren't going to make $100 million. They're not going to be in the Bugatti. They're not going to be top G. They're not going to be any of these things. They're going to be men making anywhere from 75 to maybe 50,000 to maybe $150,000 a year, and they have to have a different role. But if their goal is for women, then obviously what women see or what women want from a healthy man is 100% determined by the woman. There's certain things they
Well,
can work on
yeah.
within themselves, but at the end of the day, you're the one that dictates what that picture turns out to be.
But women are different, right? All women are different. Just like men are varied and different, so are women. And like what I want out of a man is going to be so different from what another woman wants. I can tell you that I don't want an Andrew Tate. I
Yeah,
can
of
tell you that I
course.
don't want, I don't want a guy who's got multiple, women and I'm not the only one. I
Yeah,
don't want a
no,
guy
no.
who I don't want a guy who runs a brothel essentially and might be under investigation for some seedy shit, and I don't like a guy who is so performative that he walks out with his shirt off and is getting a massage and is quite literally oiled up in front of the camera. I don't like that. That's like red flag to me.
Of course. When I use these people, I'm just using them as the
Yeah.
example for the group, not necessarily as everyone as a whole. But what, like, I'll give you, you would want, if I were to put this out there, I'm guessing you would want a man that if you were getting mugged on the street, that he would step in and deal with that situation and prevent you from being mugged, or to the best of his ability.
I think if I what I would want, I think, well, that's not just what I want in a man. I would want all men
Of
who are
course.
capable, who are physically capable and strong enough to protect the weaker. To I think yeah, I think I would want all men who are able to protect the weaker to volunteer to do that at some point, right? But that's not like specific. I think it's a good trait. I think that should be something that, but not just even in men, women. If you're a woman and you see somebody weaker than you who is getting taken advantage of, you should step in. That's something across the board some people should have.
Yeah, of course. I agree. I
Yeah,
definitely think that both need to have
yeah.
these traits, but I think we could both agree that it's going to end up falling on a man's shoulders more likely than women's shoulders in those situations most of the time. Like,
Sure,
there's
if it's a
always going
man and
to
a
be.
woman out, yeah. If it's a
Exactly.
man and a woman out, yeah, definitely, because there's a strength advantage that men have, right?
Yeah.
Just like like a man in most cases is not going to be carrying a child for 8 months, 9 months, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, and I would say that that would probably be a trait for most people. Like, if he just sat there and you got mugged and he was like, "Don't worry, I'm calling the cops." Like, that's probably not going to work out.
no, not necessarily. If the person mugging me has a weapon and it's unsafe for him to step in or do anything except for call the police, I wouldn't want him to do that.
Okay. Well, I mean, I
Yeah.
I would say that it would definitely be, at least from for me, I would have to get involved in a situation like that. I think most people would definitely be changed by that situation if they were just letting that happen. Like if some guy pops out of the bushes, ooga booga, just starts like, R-wording a girl, just doing the craziest nonsense, and you're just like, don't worry, I'll be back with help, and you just run away and leave. Like chances are, like that relationship is most
It
likely
depends on
over.
the situation, right? It depends on the situation. It does. Is this person? Did this person knock out? Like, is there a chance of somebody dying as a result of them stepping in? I don't know that I would want my partner to die as a result of them stepping in a situation, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a real world situation, I think there's always a chance of somebody dying. Only after the fact do you know that nobody was going to die.
Yeah, but there. I mean, you can still. There's still some situations where you can get hinted at that more, right?
Yeah, there's definitely signs, but there's also, I mean, in a situation like personally for me, I've been in some pretty bad situations, and I can say that situations can go from seeming very mild to somebody getting killed very quickly, and situations can
Yeah.
go from, someone looking like they're about to get killed to extremely mild very quickly. So there's no actually true read on the situation until you're actually in the situation. That's why I would say, as a general rule, I will always get involved, because you don't know if that person's just putting on a show, or and you don't know also if they really are at that level and they're just going to escalate it immediately from 0 to 100 quickly. So I would say, like, it's all, at least for me personally, I would personally always get involved.
Yeah, I think I'm actually gonna probably take a different stance than you then. I actually am thinking about it, and in most cases, unless my partner is aware that they can step in and be involved without putting themselves at risk, in most cases I will want them to not get involved and just comfort me and call the police after and do everything we can to alleviate the situation. But if there's a chance that that my partner is going to be harmed or killed in a situation, I don't want them to get involved.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely understand that take
Yeah.
of it. I would say, as like a
Because
society,
you know what? If
women.
he's dead, he can't protect me. He definitely can't protect me. He can't support me if he's dead.
Well, yeah, but
So
if you're dead, then he can't do
if
that
I'm
the
dead, it
same
doesn't
thing.
matter.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't. It's the
Right?
same thing on both sides. You know what I mean? If you're dead, then he's back at square one anyway. So I think it kind of falls back on like the situation of, as we look at society. I do think like women and children first is like a societal norm for the most part that like at least Americans kind of do follow. Um, and so falling back on like one of those societal norms that do come up, and I think that's something that definitely will continue to be a thing in the society, even going down a more left route if we decide to go down that, or a right route. I think that's something that always will stick. Um, as far as the Andrew Tate stuff that's been coming up, uh, a lot of the stuff he said is obviously very not good things, especially for younger men. If I had to place like an age range on some of the people he's actually directing it to, I would say it's probably like 19 to 30-year olds is who he's actually talking to, and we're actually seeing a bigger effect on, 13 to 17-year olds, which is the exact area of people that you don't want to have this information to.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, I think a lot of his dating advice too, or his advice with relationships and women who listen to him and stuff like that. I think a lot of that is very catered towards if you are somebody dating an 18-year-old girl. His advice works in only that a lot of those situations where your girlfriend is 18. It doesn't work in any other situation. I think that's super fucking creepy. Some of the stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah, I would say it works on 18-year-old women and women from Miami. Those are the general rule of thumb, I would say. Miami is a
yeah,
very weird city. That's a, but yeah, I feel like a lot of the advice he gives doesn't actually help people work through some of the issues. I feel like one of the things a lot of men have issue with right now is honestly being able to deal with rejection. I mean, I think we even see it in the space here. Um, on the content
yeah,
space with some men, you could definitely tell like that they've never been rejected in their life and couldn't handle it at all.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, I know it's easier said than done, but definitely getting used to rejection is healthy. I had to do it as well. I also advocate for women to start making the first move when they can. You know, don't be, um, don't wait around. Don't be afraid. I think women. I've always advocated for girls younger than me to like start practicing exercising, your agency. Make a move on a dude. If he says no, get used to rejection. And by practicing expressing your agency and practicing making the move and all of that, you're also eventually going to be practicing saying no and advocating for yourself. And nobody is going to advocate for yourself more than you are. You have to do it. So women should get used to making the first move in a lot of situations. It doesn't have to be all the time, but if you see something you want it, make the first move. Get rejected, deal with the rejection, and this way you are uh, beginning the steps of advocating for yourself and practicing advocating for yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that for both, obviously, this is everything that I'm saying goes for both groups. I'm only focusing towards men for myself personally right now because I see such a huge gap in the advice for men right now, and
Yeah.
it's such a barren wasteland of just utter bullshit most of the time. But yeah, I agree with you. Rejection is super important, and I think rejection, like what you were just saying, builds upon into boundaries, and boundaries is another area that I think both men and women need to have as an
Yeah.
extreme uh, foundation. If you don't have good boundaries, then you're really going to not be in a good place. And I feel like a lot of men really don't have very good boundaries set up. I feel like we talk a lot about women having boundaries and making sure that you have boundaries that are healthy for you. But I feel like men don't understand where that boundaries begin and where they end in a lot of ways.
Sure, and but I think part of that is because as women also we've been kind of like fucked over in the way that we're taught to socialize with people. Um, we're like women are really fucked over in the way that we're socialized. We're kind of taught to not fight, be agreeable, be people pleasers, things like that, and it takes a lot of work to unlearn that. And as a result, you may have boundaries, but you may be dog shit at advocating for yourself and advocating for those boundaries. And unfortunately, with the way the dating scene is changing, these cues that you think are you're giving off clearly to men may not be actually as clear as you think they are. And as a result, we're all getting mixed up, and inevitably bad things are going to happen, right?
Yeah, of course.
So
Well, yeah, I think for if I were to, I'm not obviously a woman, but I feel like I could speak on this a little bit. But one thing I see for women is that definitely puts women into disadvantage compared to men. Is I feel like it's pretty easy as a young man, for the most part, to talk to an older man and get some advice related to uh, sex and the topics relating around the other genders, and it's fairly easy. And I feel like women, for young women specifically, the advice you end up getting usually tends to be from friends around your age group. I don't feel like that the advice that women get around when they're 13 to 15 is generally a positive thing. I feel like they
it's
just get
generally not.
dog
And
shit
women,
advice.
yeah, and in those situations, you're reading really shitty magazines that also give women like the wrong idea and give women the wrong idea about how they should react to a man. And a lot of it is very like self, it is very harmful to girls. So, um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think all these things are
Okay.
extremely important. I think charisma is another one for men that men really need to work on. Nowadays, I feel like most men
Yeah.
have no charisma, cannot hold a conversation, and can't even, uh, honestly, they don't even spend enough time listening to people. I think they're so in their heads that a lot of men really just have no idea what's going on around them. And the more aware you get, the better off you're going to be in the dating world as well. And
Yeah.
I feel like these are a lot of the things that Andrew Tate misses.
I think a huge thing is that, like, we're talking about cues, right? Just like women have to improve upon advocating for themselves, I think also men should give. when you're in a dating scene, give women ample opportunities to escape the situation. Give her as many opportunities as possible. Like if you're meeting up and you're going for drinks or something, and you decide like, you're still hanging out, and you say like, oh, um, do you have work in the morning? Or do you have something in the morning, or do you want to go hang out further? Um, give her multiple outs, right? Like, oh, do you need to do this? Do you need to do that? You know, uh, if you want, we can do this, right? But give her outs, and if she's really into you, she will continue um, to stick with you. And at least in that way, you're giving her options. You're giving her like really non-confrontational ways to walk away from the situation without feeling threatened. And so I think that yeah, instead of like the whole like you want to go back to my place, like for as an example of somebody saying like you want to go back to my place, instead of saying that, you would say like, hey, I'm enjoying my time with you. Do you want to hang out further at my place, or do you have work in the morning? Right? You're giving her an or, right? You're giving her an out. And that gives her a chance to not feel threatened. If she needs to, she can take that out. If she doesn't, she's been offered that opportunity to take an out, and she is still having the agency to go forward with you.
Of course, I think that's extremely important. And yeah, that does come with like, learning to be able to read things. I think that would be um, an extremely good place to start for a lot of young men. Being able to give someone multiple options is extremely important, especially at the end of a night if you guys were drinking or anything like that. And multiple things can come up. It's always best to have multiple options. As far as what I would say for men, this obviously every situation is different, and you do have to kind of be able to read every situation. It's not just like a cookie cutter. This conversation is what you should have every step of the time or every single way. But yeah, I would wholly agree with you in that you need to give women multiple options and leave the door open for the decision to be made in a healthy way.
Yeah, and I think also, even if you don't operate in that subtle of a way, I've had people who will say to me like, "Hey, at any time, if you want to stop or if you need to go, just let me know," and ask me that a couple of times, right? And that's made like the world of a difference to me, because this stuff is just messy. It really is. And there's nothing wrong with offering that. There's nothing that's going to change the mood or ruin the mood with that. If anything, you're probably going to get even more appreciation from her if you're giving her every opportunity to leave, and she feels safe enough to not leave, um and
I do think
yeah,
you're unique in that, though.
so
I definitely do think you are unique in that way. I don't. I think if you were to ask a woman, like, "Hey, are you sure you're good here? Like, are you sure you don't have anything else to
well, you
do
wouldn't
tonight?"
say it like
Yeah,
that.
you know what I mean, though. You know what I mean. But if you're
No,
like,
no, I don't know about that. I think I disagree. I think if you're saying like, "Hey, you want to go back to my place, or do you have work in the morning?" You've given her an out, and you are not like being like she's going to be more
yeah,
appreciative of you.
yes, that question I will give to you on that one. But what you just said a few minutes ago, like, hey, one guy was saying, checking in with me throughout the night. You're not going to ask, hey, do you want to come back to my place? Or do you have work in the morning? Are you having something else going on 3 times? Like, it's definitely something like that.
No,
Like,
you don't do it
as you're
through.
checking
You
up
don't.
on that,
Okay, yeah.
there's
So
there's a
that's
fine
that's not what
line,
I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying, right? What I'm saying is, you obviously would change the question, right?
of
You
course.
you maybe the first time you ask her, like, "Hey, do you have work in the morning?" She comes with you, and then at some point later on, you say like, "Hey, um, if you need anything, let me know. If you have things to do, let me know, right? Don't ask like 8 times. Ask,
Yeah, I'm
don't be a
making you
fucking
clarify this
freak.
because people that hear this stuff are going to take exactly what you're saying and apply it in real life, and you know that. Some
Yeah,
people
if you're
really will.
asking like 8 people or eight, not 8 people, if you're asking 8 times in the same night, you're doing it wrong. Don't be annoying with it. At that point, it's just like you're being annoying. But ask a couple of times, give her a couple of outs. I think 3 is pretty good, 3 to 4, and you know, uh, uh, yeah, people appreciate it.
Yeah, people do
So.
appreciate that, and I think that's definitely a great starting place for a lot of young men. And then, obviously, as you get to a place to where you get to the place where you can start reading situations better, I feel like a lot of people, Destiny included, when he gives advice, like Destiny's a pretty charismatic person. I think we can both agree on that, and the conversations he can have with people can be pretty in depth. And so I imagine when he's talking in DMs to some women, he's reading the situation probably 100 times better than the average man. And so don't
I don't know him that well to really say, but
well,
yeah,
he's just a very open
yeah.
person through his streams. So just by what he talks about in his relationship streams, and yeah, I would say that you need to reading situations is great, but learn how to read them through experience. Don't just
If
try
you
to
can't
read
read them,
everything.
it's okay.
Yeah,
But
ask.
the thing is, here's the thing. Not everybody's going to be able to read, and I think for most people, you shouldn't rely on your ability to read cues. Give people concrete outs, ways that they can give you the cue that they are not interested or that they want to go. Give them concrete outs. That way, there is no doubt about what you are reading in a cue, right? Uh, so there's no doubt about what you're reading in that queue, because otherwise, most people are not the greatest, and a lot of people overestimate their ability to read cues. So I think the safest way to do it, offer multiple ways for her to take the cue and leave, if she's feeling uncomfortable, and if she doesn't, you have successfully created a situation where you can read those cues definitively. So.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely don't leave a lot of room for things going sideways if you do that, and I 100% agree with you on that. And I think that a lot of these people, they hear things like charisma, and they hear oh, okay, like he was just naturally has a lot of charisma. Like, no, people work at this. Like, you can get better at these things.
Yeah, and some not. You know what? You don't even have to be charismatic. Give people. If that's not your strength, if you have practiced trying to be charismatic and you just can't get there, that's okay. You can do this a different way. There's a different method for you, and that method just happens to be giving people blatant outs, right? That are non-confrontational, and they continue to go forward with it, and then just being blunt and honest at a certain point.
Well, yeah, I think you need both. None of these are
Yeah.
substitutions for one another. All of these things go hand in hand. Like, I would never tell someone only go get rejected and become a master of rejection. I think like rejection builds upon charisma, boundaries build upon charisma and confidence. Like, all of these things work within each other to form a good system, and what you're saying adds into that system, which is communication. If you can't communicate these things properly, like, you're just going to end yourself into a very bad situation a lot of times.
Yeah. Well, I gotta get going. I have a friend who was gonna cover some stuff with me, but it was good talking with you. Did you have anything else you wanted to close with?
Nope, nothing I want to close with. I'll definitely message you if I have anything else I want to talk about in the future.
Okay, cool. All
All
right.
right.
Thanks,
Have a
Steve.
great night. Do you care if I plug myself?
No, no, go right ahead.
Guys, I'm Arkhs on everything. ARKHSX. Come follow me. Jump in there. I'll argue with any of you guys. And yeah, come get yelled at.
Cool. Thanks. See
All right.
ya.
See ya.